What is going on? Your boy is out of the hospital. I am feeling better. I was in there for 2 days because I had 3 asthma attacks in one day. It was absolutely nuts. But nonetheless, I'm feeling much better. My voice might be a little bit low, but I am eager to get back on the video grind and cover all of this news that is going on. So smash that like button for me, show your boy some love. But in this video, we're gonna be talking about Donald Trump's tariffs. Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? I think they're a brilliant move, and I'm gonna be making the case for why that is. But first, let's hear from the man himself, Donald Trump, about how he thinks Liberation Day went.
First, we'd love to get your reaction, sir, to what's going on in the financial markets today.
Well, I mean, it's to be expected. This is a patient that was very sick. We really inherited a terrible economy, as you know, with a lot of problems, including loss of manufacturing and plants closed up all over the country. You know, we've lost 90,000 plants since NAFTA, if you think of that. 90,000, it's not even believable. And about 6 million jobs. And so it was a sick patient. It went through an operation on Liberation Day. And it's going to be a booming country. A very booming country. It's going to be amazing.
To start, what he said was absolutely correct. The United States economy has been running on a high fueled by morphine, cocaine, champagne, and quaaludes. And while that may feel good for a time being, the ultimate result is a very sick and painful death. So what Donald Trump did is he's taking us off of this path. Essentially, our economy was a car speeding towards the edge of a cliff, and no politician wanted to touch it because it was unpopular. To stop this car going off the cliff would require you to dig your heels into the ground, Flintstone style. And that's going to cause some pain, obviously, but it's much better than falling all the way off the cliff to your ultimate demise. Our economy has been fueled by trillions of dollars of deficit spending, combined with third world slave wage labor to make for cheap imports into the country. Because 50 years ago or so, someone decided our economy would be much better off if we transitioned into a service-based economy rather than a manufacturing economy. Because the underlying theory was, if you have cheaper inputs going into your manufacturing, that's going to lead to cheaper products. And because the wages in the United States were rapidly growing, they justified sending all of our manufacturing overseas so people could work more productive service sector jobs, and we could take advantage of cheap goods being imported from elsewhere. Well, it was all fine and dandy until you fast forward till now, and we can't manufacture anything. The chips that we need, we can't manufacture. The pharmaceutical medicines that we need, we can't manufacture. The auto parts we need, we don't manufacture. The weapons we need for our military defense, we don't manufacture. We can't build any ships. We quite literally can't build anything. But hey, at least we have a whole bunch of computer science people who can work on social media companies, and we have a lot of influencers. We have a whole bunch of people who make a whole bunch of money, but we're not actually creating any real tangible value. And the people who have been hurt by this the most are the middle class people in middle America. So Trump's plan is twofold. Let's bring back manufacturing of these essential goods that we need to maintain our national security. And then 2, let's generate new revenue sources via tariffs that will help offset tax cuts that will help the middle class. Combine that with a reduction in government spending, and you're left with the situation where all these unproductive federal workers who are being laid off will soon be able to get jobs in high productive manufacturing private sector work. And this idea isn't even that far-fetched. Here is Bernie Sanders in 2008 saying we need tariffs to combat trade with China, and essentially sounding like a 2024 MAGA supporter. Watch.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America, because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street, people who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, health care, pensions, throw them out on the street, because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good-paying jobs in America as we shut down plants, we move to China, corporations there, pay workers 20, 30 cents an hour, and we bring the product back into this country. And anyone who goes shopping in a mall knows how difficult it is today to find the product made in America.
So yeah, say what you will about Bernie Sanders and his socialist viewpoints, but there's a reason that Bernie Sanders got a lot of populist appeal, just as Donald Trump did. They both essentially want the same thing. They just have two different paths of going about it. But put that to the side. Here's why Donald Trump crashing the stock market is a genius move. This entire global economy is propped up on US deficit spending and an unhealthy reliance on third world slave labor manufacturing. So when you get rid of those two things and you say no more, that's obviously going to have quite the impact on the stock market, which is fine. You need to flush the champagne and cocaine and morphine and quaaludes out of our system. But more than that, what it's going to do is cause investors to flood into buying US treasuries. And I'll throw a screenshot up on the screen of what the treasury bonds have looked like over the past month, and they are falling. The reason treasury bond yields fall is there is heightened demand in bonds, in safety, in security. This takes money out of the economy, puts it into safe bonds, which lowers inflation. Lowering inflation means the Fed is also going to cut interest rates on top of the natural decline that is happening in the market. I'm so excited here because I love this. But when you look at all of these factors and you combine them, what you get is almost $10 trillion of United States debt is going to be due in 2025. That means the government will raise a new $10 trillion to cover this. But this time, it'll be at a substantially lower interest rate. That will save the United States hundreds of billions of dollars per year in interest payments, which means if you lower the interest burden of our federal budget, combined with Elon Musk slashing $1 trillion of spending, plus new revenue getting generated from Donald Trump's gold cards, plus new revenue getting generated from tariff income. It balances out the Trump tax cuts that he's trying to make permanent, which means people will keep more of their income, and that will more than offset the slight increase in prices that might be felt from some of the imports getting more expensive. Like, you just have to think about it for a second for it to make sense. But of course, here's Kamala Harris, cackling Kamala, showing up out of nowhere yesterday to say how right she was about what was going to happen if Donald Trump got elected. It sounds more like a loser coping, but take a listen.
And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
See, the problem with Kamala Harris is she was going to keep up the same consistent behavior of more government spending, of government-sponsored and subsidized this. She was not willing to dig her heels into the ground to stop the car from going over the cliff. No politician was, because they were all scared. They were all addicted to the status quo. They were more than happy to watch Social Security become insolvent, for our manufacturing capabilities to be completely sent overseas, because you wouldn't have to experience this short-term pain in their plan. Donald Trump is willing to do the unpopular thing, deal with the short-term pain for the long-term benefit. I've been seeing people complain all over X, oh, my 401k is down. And I'm like, what an asshole you have to be. The greatest generation fought Nazi tyranny and the Japanese to provide their kids, their grandkids, all future generations with a prosperous and sustainable life. And that is exactly what is being asked of us right now in this moment. We have to sacrifice. We have to deal with this short-term pain so the existence of the United States can continue for the foreseeable future. Yeah, pulling your friend off of the dance floor and saying, hey, you might want to cool down on the cocaine and the champagne and drink some water, or else you're going to get really, really sick and you may not recover from this, is going to make him mad in the moment. but in the long term, he's going to thank you for saving his life. Listen to Trump's Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, explain this perfectly.
We're setting the stage for long-term economic growth, that we were on our way to a financial crisis. You know, I used to teach a history of financial crises, and with that gigantic government spending, it was unsustainable. You look back in 1998, you look back in 2007, right before it looked great, everything collapsed. So, I mean, it looked great right before everything collapsed. So we have taken us off that trajectory, and we are putting ourselves back onto a sound trajectory.
That's the problem that's essentially infected all of our politics. Nobody wants to touch the hard thing. They would rather keep the party going, keep the money flowing as long as they can, and pray that the inevitable crash doesn't happen under their watch. That's it. Like he mentioned with the dot-com bubble crash or the great financial crash of 2008, all the writing was on the wall that this was going to be an issue. But stock markets were surging. Everybody was making money. The housing market was booming. Nobody wanted to touch it and stop it because it would be politically unpopular. But everybody knew that the fundamentals were there that were unsustainable and would inevitably lead to a horrible disaster. And the Democrats aren't mad at Trump because, you know, there's some short-term turbulence. Why they're mad at Trump is because he actually had the balls to do it. They know his plan is going to work, and if the American people see that it works, they will never ever vote for Democrats again. And that's what they're scared of. It's the same thing with Doge. They don't care about the workers being fired. They don't believe that he's going to cut Social Security and all these services. They're scared that it's going to work and the American people are going to see that the government has been stealing from us for the past 80 years. Listen to Chris Murphy, basically the most Trump deranged senator there is, explain how Donald Trump's tariff plan isn't actually an economic plan. It's something far more sinister than that.
Trump's tariffs that he announced last night, it's not economic policy, it's not trade policy, it's a political weapon designed to collapse our democracy. Last night when he released his tariff plan, economists were really confused because they looked at the numbers, they looked at the formula. It made absolutely no sense as economic policy, as a means to try to bring jobs back to the United States. That's because it's not trade policy, it's not economic policy. The tariffs are another tool for President Trump to try to compel pledges of loyalty, this time from companies and industries in the United States. You have to understand that everything Donald Trump is doing is in service of staying in power forever, either him or his family or his handpicked successors. He's trying to destroy our democracy.
I mean, the trope is so old, it's so tiring. Anybody with half a brain has to be able to see through this garbage. How is Trump trying to destroy democracy? By bolstering American manufacturing, by bolstering American middle-class jobs. He wants to see companies stop relying on Bangladeshian and Vietnamese and Chinese slave sweatshop labor and actually bring their manufacturing back to America, pay people a solid wage, and sell the product in the greatest market on earth. But somehow that's a threat to democracy. I mean, the Democrats, they're so desperate. They're so angered that somebody is actually challenging the status quo of the deep state, of the swamp that has infected Washington, D.C. since after World War II. I made this point to somebody the other day who was talking about, oh, there's no waste in the government. In the last 60 years, the United States has spent some $80 trillion on top of our $36 trillion debt. You're talking about $116 trillion being spent by our federal government. Don't you think we should have streets paved with gold, the most modern public transit, the best public K through 12 education? Don't you think it's silly that we have homeless people after spending all that money? We should be living in a clean and shiny utopia, but we're not. You know why? Because they've been stealing all of that money. Listen to Trump address all the people who are predictably hating on this new world order, this America First order that Trump has established.
In the coming days, there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests And the fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a disaster if I didn't terminate it. If I didn't terminate that, United Auto Workers, you would have had no jobs in this country. You would have had no jobs. It was all going to other countries.
So yeah, the entire world is mad because we're moving away from the globalist world order, where we decided we're too good to engage in physical labor. We outsource that to the third world. We're smart, we're intellectual, we command high wages, so we have to do above the shoulders work that yield a higher return on our time. But we soon found out that, hey, guess what? A country still needs to be able to build things, especially the most essential things it needs to survive. And people are like, well, this world order was established by the United States after World War II. Well, hey, it worked then. We needed to rebuild a destroyed world and help enrich other countries who would be our allies, because then we would have more trading partners, which would make us richer. It was fine back then, but we didn't foresee one of the countries that we let into this world trade order, being China, to turn around and become extremely adversarial. The whole idea of free trade works if everybody's going to be cooperative. But if one of these nations becomes incredibly hostile and anti-American, and they're also in charge of providing us with all of our medicine, all of the necessary inputs for our electronics, our technology, our military weaponry, well then it's not such a great situation anymore, is it? And you can tell China's panicking because they responded with 34% retaliatory tariffs on the United States. Watch.
Yeah. By the way, we do have some breaking news right now from China. The finance minister saying that it will impose additional tariffs on U.S. goods from April 10th at a rate of 34%. Uh-oh. This is, and you were watching the market drop on this news. The futures are off by 650 points for the Dow right now, 80 points for the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 263 points. China's Commerce Ministry is announcing restrictions on some rare earths as well, but this was kind of the next shoe. This is what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary here in the United States, was urging caution.
Remember, Biden, don't.
Yeah, don't do it. Telling other countries to not put retaliatory tariffs back. But it sounds like that is exactly what China is going to be doing. So you can watch things ratcheting up right now.
For what?
The funny thing about China is we buy like $450 billion a year of stuff from them, and they buy like $150 billion of stuff from us. So if each of us buy 50% less, you're talking about a $200 billion decrease for them and only a $75 billion decrease for us. And they don't really buy much of our stuff anyway. Yeah, they buy like a lot of farm goods, but with all the new tariffs we've placed across Europe and other places, our farmers will just make up for that by selling more domestically. China is an export economy. They need people to buy their stuff. And increasingly, the whole world is getting tired of their aggressive adversarial behavior. The United States is a consumer economy. We are the world's biggest customer by far. Every country wants to get into our market. China has enriched themselves off the backs of the United States, buying their cheap little widgets and trinkets. And now the days of that are over. Does China think Europe's gonna pick up the tab? Does China think Europe's gonna pick up the tab from the United States? Europe is going through its own financial struggles right now. And does Europe really want a whole bunch of Chinese cars and smartphones and telecom products that are directly going to cause its own domestic companies to go out of business? No, of course not. Every country works in its own interest. It's only the United States that over the past 50, 60 years has basically existed to benefit the rest of the globe at our expense. It created a global market that was reliant on us continuing to have that same philosophy. Those days are over. And yes, there's going to be a shock to the stock market. Yes, there's going to be an immediate shock to maybe some of our imports getting more expensive. But we are the United States of America. We are the richest, most prosperous, most productive, most resilient country in the world. And we will come out of this on top. And I thank Donald Trump that he had the courage to do what any other politician would find too unpopular to touch because he truly cares about the longevity of our country. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video, and it'll keep me out of the hospital. And I'll see you guys in the next one.